So today we're going to answer some common questions about veganism. We actually have to talk pretty loud because it's pretty far away. So today we're going to answer some common questions about veganism. The first question is, what ultimately made us go vegan in the first place? And I went vegan first, not much before you did, maybe a week or two. And I watched The Best Speech You'll Ever Hear by Gary Rossi. I think that's the first vegan video I ever watched. Then I started watching Bite Size Vegan on YouTube and learning about all the different aspects and what to eat and what vegans do and don't do. So that's how I started learning about it. And
so you were actually vegetarian for a little while.
Yeah.
Before then. She was vegetarian, and I happened to see a video clip scrolling through Facebook. I immediately skipped past it, and then I started thinking, so I had to go back and watch this video for about 10-15 seconds, and then I was like, okay, that's enough for me. That was my first change to vegetarian. Obviously there was a few slip-ups here and there.
What made you go from vegetarian to vegan? Because I don't think you watched anything else.
No.
So you really didn't watch anything on dairy or eggs industry.
No.
You just kind of took my word for it that it was, just as bad as the meat industry. So he was already convinced about the animal ethics part, and we just weren't that informed about the other stuff. So when I learned about it, he was pretty open to going vegan because he already was vegetarian for the animals, even though we know now that it doesn't do much to help animals. That's why we did it in our minds. So when we learned that it was important to take the full step and go vegan, we did that pretty quickly after we learned about it. And I think once I watched the information, I told you that there wasn't any way I was going to keep eating that stuff anymore, and you said okay. I think you ate like one more non-vegan meal after me, and then...
Well, the Thanksgiving slip up because of...
That was when you're vegetarian, though.
Yeah.
But now when you go vegan, then it changes everything, because then you're not going to make slip-ups once you make the full connection. It's totally different. Once you go vegan, you don't make mistakes, because it's just so important to you, and it just doesn't... I don't know, what would you say? How you don't make mistakes when you're vegan?
That's what I didn't hear a thing you said because I was trying to think of the word tradition.
Tradition? Oh yeah, so he's going to talk about how when he went vegetarian, that tradition is what kind of...
Yeah, so going back to the Thanksgiving slip up. For some weird reason in my head I was thinking of traditions, and I feel like I had to have that slice of turkey for dinner. And a lot of it's you got to break those traditions, you've got to think for yourself.
Once you actually go vegan and completely educate yourself, and your whole mindset changes where it's not even like food to you anymore. The other stuff, it's not even an option. Like, you just see it as for what it is, which is dead animals, and it's abuse, and it's not even something that you would consider even eating. Like, I'd rather starve than eat something not vegan at this point in my life.
I think one of the most difficult things is not knowing what's out there. Some people might be afraid to give it a try, or afraid to watch something because they know that they do care for the animals, and they're afraid that they'll switch their habits, their eating habits, and they don't know what's out there. So they're afraid, they don't know what to go and buy at the store. They don't think there's any options for them to eat.
I think a lot of people, majority of the people I've met who aren't vegan, usually aren't vegan because there are some people that say they don't care. I don't know how true that is or not. But most people that do care, I don't want to watch it. But it's frustrating because you're thinking, you watching it or an animal's life, it's not even like a question. Like, the animal's life is more important. But people don't want to like break that like habit, because they know that once they know the truth, that they're gonna feel compelled to change, and they don't want to have to change their lifestyle. So I think if we try to explain to them what we can eat, so it makes it less daunting, maybe then they'll be open to watching the videos, and then they feel compelled to change on their own once they watch it. It is just hard initially getting people to watch the footage, because they want to be sheltered from watching it.
I mean, honestly, I haven't even watched much of anything other than that clip in the beginning that first made me go vegetarian. But that was enough for me.
Yeah. I think once you like see some clips, sometimes it will just click for you. I would hope, like, for me, once you think about what your food is, well, it's not even like food. It's just like, why would you support that? Usually, that's what I think is most impactful is when people see the footage. Of course, you can like, in the beginning when I first went vegan, I wasn't as vocal as I am about it now, and I would try to get people to like watch the health documentaries, which is obviously a compelling evidence for a plant-based lifestyle, but most people don't stick with it if they do it for health reasons, and they don't completely go vegan. They just like eat mostly a plant-based diet, which we know isn't enough. So I think like it's so important to get people to watch it. Also, because there's other things that aren't food related, like leather and like animal tested products that you want people to stop doing, and like going to circuses and all that. So it's really important to make the ethical connection. Dating a vegan. So we started dating 6 years ago before we were vegan. We've been vegan for 2 years or so, a little over. And we weren't together, like we were together way before we were both vegan or anything. So I think for us it changed things because we kind of went vegan together. I think it's got to be difficult for people who are in a relationship already, and one person goes vegan and the other person isn't open to it. So I think that's difficult. I would say that if I were in a position now where I wasn't with somebody, I wouldn't date a non-vegan. I'd probably, if advice for people who are single and want to be with somebody, I would say to maybe like befriend someone and then educate them about veganism, and then if they're open to it and they decide to go vegan, then go into dating them.
And being vegan is a huge part of your life, your everyday life, and I know deep down I wouldn't want to be with somebody that isn't vegan.
Would you like, if we weren't together for some reason, or even if you're looking at like a friend, you're talking to a friend that's vegan, would you say like, would you tell them like, should we date, like not, obviously we can't tell people what to do, but like, would you want to date a non-vegan, like, would you be open to that or no?
No.
So you'd have to have them go vegan first. And I think that some people get really confused why. They're like, oh, it's just a dietary choice. Why does it matter? But it's so much more than that, because one's like condoning violence and one's, living ethically. So I think it's really important. Like, it's not just a food choice. Like, it's not like somebody's like, like gluten-free. Like, it's not the same thing as just being gluten-free. Like, that's obviously like, there's nothing ethically wrong with eating gluten. It's just like, that's an actual like dietary preference. But like being vegan, it's because there's something wrong with the alternative. Yeah, that's why we wouldn't date non-vegans. But I would say for anyone who is vegan and they're having a hard time finding a vegan to date or anything like that, I would say that maybe try befriending the person and then educating them right away about it. If people are open-minded, they'll usually go vegan, or once you get them past like getting them to watch the footage, I think people are pretty open to going vegan. Because I wouldn't want to be with somebody that doesn't like appreciate or like at least respect animals enough not to eat them once it comes down to it and they're informed about it. So, do you find it difficult to be vegan?
So I think when you initially make the change, the decision to go vegan, it can be a little bit difficult at first. Your best bet, you need to educate yourself. If you're just starting out, there's information available everywhere. You really want to ask questions. Surround yourself online or with people that are vegan. They have a ton of information for you because you won't know what's out there. There's so many options. Literally everything has a vegan alternative.
Yeah, you don't have to give up anything when you go vegan. You just have an alternative. And if the alternative doesn't exist, even if the alternative isn't something you can find around you, you can always make it from scratch if you really want it. It's not impossible, and it's not that difficult. It's actually like, I think people go into it, and I know for me before I was vegan, looking at restaurant menus alone, if you look at restaurant menus, like a traditional restaurant menu, you think in your head that vegans don't have a lot of options, because all that's on those menus is like meat, dairy, eggs, like on every meal. And I think like our society like makes us think that those are like the base of food and there's nothing else out there. But then once I like went vegan for ethical reasons, like I had to find alternatives, and I did, and I like actually started liking my food more. Like some of the best food I've ever had is vegan food, and it's actually like better. Like vegans have like 10 options for like vegan bacon. Like you can make it like out of 10 different things. Like talk to like a non-vegan, they end up eating like the same like 3 or 4 dead animals. They eat the same 2 like animal secretions or 3 animal secretions, and they pretty much like don't have that much variety in their diet. Like when you talk to vegans, they usually are way more creative about their food.
It was difficult in the beginning too, going to certain functions where there really isn't any options for you, and I guess that really just comes with time. You have to just accept or bring your own food.
Yeah.
It can be a pain. There's really no other way around it.
It's a good idea if you're going to a function with non-vegans, if you bring like a whole dish that you can like offer to everybody, then you can like, you know it's vegan. Like you don't have to play a guessing game about like, oh, asking somebody what's in it, like, because that can be really scary too. Like once you're vegan and you're in it like for ethical reasons, like you're really, if you make a mistake, it really does upset you, and it's not something that you want to do. It can also make you sick, like on top of that. So sometimes it's just better to bring your own option unless you know exactly what's in your food. I think one way to think about it is if you're a new vegan and you're in these social situations that you're not used to, I usually just try to remember that like my like upsetness about not being able to eat like, you know, something at a party doesn't compare to what the animals go through. So it's really no reason for me to be upset, and that will usually keep you from going ahead and making slip-ups if you just remember that there's a victim to the food.
I've noticed in the beginning that when you go to these functions, you're less lenient with yourself, that you're okay, I'll eat this time. There comes a point in time where you won't make those mistakes anymore. You simply just won't eat it unless it's vegan.
Yeah, I think like when I was like trying to be like vegetarian, I can't even say I was like when I was vegetarian that I was even vegetarian. Like my mind was like half there. Like I kind of started getting it, like why I needed to cut these things out. But then I didn't really get it because I was like making mistakes, and now like to think of that is crazy because like nowadays like I would never, like that's just not even a question for like a real vegan. They wouldn't go ahead and do that. So if you're still in that place where you're not understanding it, I would just say just keep watching, keep educating yourself on the animals, because really like when it comes down to it, the thing that's going to keep you vegan, because it is like the more inconvenient choice, unfortunately, is to think about the animals, really. Like there's no other way, because everybody around you is going to be normalizing that, and they're going to make you think it's not as bad as it is. Like you think like because everybody else is doing it, it like takes away the harm for some reason. Like it's so normal to you that you start to forget like what it is. Like it's a dead animal, like it's stolen from an animal, you know? So just try to remember what it really is, and don't let people like kind of like smoke screen you with the food. Like I guess like you see all this like food out and you don't think of like the cruelty behind it. That's how carnists like get through their day of eating animals, because most of them like animals and they think about it because they don't think of it as being an animal. So just always remember that when you're a new vegan, to remember what the food really is. Yeah, that would be tips for new vegans. Do you have any other tips for new vegans?
What about like family and stuff?
How to deal with your family when you're vegan, when you first go vegan? This can be different for everybody because everybody's family is different. I would just say to make it clear that this isn't up for debate. Once you make the ethical decision to go vegan, people think that it's kind of like, people get confused that it's something that you turn on and off or something. So you really want to make it clear that this is something that you're going to be doing 100% of the time. It doesn't turn on and off. You're not open to, you know, debating about it or making like exceptions. People will expect you to make like exceptions in the beginning maybe because they're not used to it. Just explain that it is what it is, you know, that you're not going to change it. And then you have to kind of feel out how they respond to that. You can meet people who are going to be really accepting and be like, oh, that's okay for you, like, and they'll like, some people will even start to go vegan around you or even like be interested in veganism. Then you're going to meet people who are the absolute worst and like resist it, and you're going to meet people who are somewhere in the middle where they're like, you know, they'll kind of like not really say anything at all, but they're not going to like go out of their way to help you find options. So just don't let people bring you down when you know that the decision you made is the right one. Even if people are aggressive towards you, you really just have to always remember why you're doing what you're doing.
My family was never against it, but they were skeptical. You know, when you grow up for so many years thinking that you need meat and that you need dairy for your nutrients, it can be difficult to get that through their heads. Cancer does run in my family, so when I had like my grandmother and my mom watch a couple different videos. Forks Over Knives is a really good one. It basically...
Forks Over Knives is a good video to get people thinking about the health perspective of a plant-based diet, because I think people use the health aspect as a defense mechanism. We try to say we don't have to eat animals. Why would we kill animals when we don't have to? It's cruel. It's wrong, and they're not ours to use. When people start thinking like, you know, they fall back on, well, we need animals to be healthy, and that's a good like way to counter like that argument. Be like, well, watch this. It's actually the opposite. So what I usually say is like, it only makes sense that the most ethical diet in the world is also like the most environmentally friendly and the most healthy diet. So you really like win everywhere when you go vegan. You are doing the most ethical thing. You know, you do it for ethical reasons, but there are other benefits that come along with it, which are not the reason that you do it, but they come along and they're good arguments for people that try to go against, you know, people will try to say things like you need all of that stuff in your diet, and you can always use those health arguments as a defense mechanism when people try to tell you it's not healthy. And then they really are left with no good reason to continue consuming animals. And that can go one of two ways. It can either go where they're going to actually make the necessary changes to go vegan, or they are going to be more aggressive because now, you know, they're in a vulnerable position where they now see that they can't hide behind, I need to eat animals to live, when they see you doing it and you're healthy. And then the good thing is, even though if people are defensive, sometimes that's a good thing in the beginning, because that means that they're thinking, if they're upset about it, that means that you must have triggered something that made them start thinking about what they're doing. And of course, you know, we want everybody to go vegan overnight, but we can't control the actions of other people, even though, you know, we know that they shouldn't be doing it to animals. It's not right. We're not in a position where we can make anyone go vegan. So I think that we should always be promoting veganism and planting seeds so that we can get people to at least maybe reflect on it later on, even if they're defensive and they're not going to go vegan right away. It doesn't hurt to just, you know, explain what veganism is, and even if they get upset, they're usually upset about the fact that their own conscience is feeling guilty about what they do. It's not your fault. You shouldn't take it personally. Anything else? No. I would say, like, for new vegans, you should experiment with some of the substitutes. It's obviously, I know a lot of people that want to go into it and eat like whole foods, plant-based diet, because you meet those people that are like, well, why would I want to eat fake meat if I'm not going to eat animals fake meat? Well, I would say I don't usually call it fake meat because it's not, I don't want to like make people, that the word fake meat, it just sounds off-putting, so I usually say like plant-based or vegan meat. And the reason that I usually explain to people is that, you know, we don't not eat animals because of taste. We don't eat animals because it's not ethical. It's not the right thing to do. Some people will be skeptical of trying those plant-based meat products. If you can get them past that and try it, they'll see that they're really good, and it just like really gives people, you know, a different perspective on what they think veganism is. People think that vegans just eat like, you know, I honestly, when I was a kid, when I heard the word vegan, the only thing I knew was like people who ate fruits and vegetables. I didn't really even understand what it was. Just know that there's like those replacements out there, and don't be don't be afraid to try them because of the negative like stigma that they have from meat eaters. So yeah, that's about it. I think that's all we have to say, right?
Yeah.
Okay.